Samuel's truck idled outside Brennan's general store when he saw them. Two girls, maybe 10 years old, identical except for the way one held her shoulders higher than the other. They stood by the wooden steps clutching something orange and white against their chests. The kitten mewed once, sharp and thin in the morning air. "You think anyone's going to want her?" The taller girl's voice carried across the gravel parking lot. "Someone has to." Her twin shifted the kitten to her other arm. "Mama said people always need barn cats." Samuel cut the engine. Through his windshield, he watched them arrange themselves like they practiced this. The shorter girl smoothed her sister's hair with spit on her palm. Both wore dresses that had seen better summers. Fabric faded the color of old dishwater. A woman in a Sunday hat walked past them toward the store entrance. The twins straightened. "Ma'am." The taller one stepped forward. "You want a kitten? She's real sweet, catches mice good." The woman glanced at them, then at the dirt caked under their fingernails. "No thank you, girls." She disappeared inside without slowing down. Samuel remembered his own daughter's hands at that age. Always dirty from digging in their garden, building fairy houses from twigs and bottle caps. Emma would have been 16 now if that drunk driver hadn't run the red light 3 years ago. If Sheriff Morrison hadn't buried the incident report because the mayor's boy was behind the wheel. The twins tried 2 more customers. A rancher with worn boots who shook his head before they finished talking. An elderly man who patted their heads like they were stray dogs but kept walking. "How much you asking?" Samuel had climbed out of his truck without deciding to. The words just came. Both girls turned toward him. Up close, he could see they were thin in a way that meant missed meals, not growing pains. The kitten was barely 8 weeks old, orange tabby with white paws that looked too big for its body. "Whatever you think's fair." The shorter twin's voice was barely above a whisper. "Mama needs medicine real bad." "What kind of medicine?" The taller girl glanced at her sister, some silent conversation passing between them. "The kind that makes the hurting stop." Samuel's chest tightened. "Your mama's sick?" "Real sick." The shorter one buried her face in the kitten's fur. "Been sick for months now, ever since Daddy left." "Where'd your daddy go?" "Don't know. Just went to work one morning and never came back." The taller twin's jaw set in a way that made her look older than 10. "Sheriff Morrison says he probably found himself a new family somewhere. Says Mama brought this on herself for not being a better wife." The words hit Samuel like a physical blow. He'd heard Morrison say similar things about other women in town. Always the woman's fault when men left. Always deserved whatever happened after. "Morrison said that to you girls?" "Said it to Mama when she asked him to help find Daddy." The kitten squirmed and the shorter girl adjusted her grip, said if she couldn't keep her own husband happy, maybe she should think about what she was doing wrong. Samuel's hands clenched into fists. Morrison had looked him in the eye 3 years ago and lied about Emma's accident report. Said there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. Said sometimes bad things just happened, and good people had to accept God's will. "How much medicine money you need?" The twins exchanged another look. Mama said if we could get $20, she could buy what she needs at the pharmacy. $20. Samuel had more than that in his pocket from selling cattle feed that morning. He pulled out his wallet, counted out $60, and held it toward them. "Mister, that's too much." The taller girl backed up a step. "We can't take that much." "You're not taking it. You're selling me this kitten." Samuel reached for the orange tabby. The animal was warm and solid in his hands, purring like a tiny motor. "What's her name?" "Patches." The shorter twin wiped her nose on her sleeve. "On account of her white feet. Patches is worth every penny." Samuel tucked the money into the taller girl's dress pocket. "You tell your mama this came from selling your kitten, nothing else." Both girls nodded solemnly. The shorter one started to cry, quiet tears that she wiped away fast. "You girls need a ride home?" "We can walk." But the taller twin looked toward the road that stretched away from town, heat shimmers already rising from the asphalt. "It's not too far." Samuel was already walking toward his truck. "Come on. Too hot to walk with that medicine money. Someone might try to take it from you." The girls climbed into his cab, Patches curled between them. through the rear view mirror. Samuel watched them counting the bills again, whispering to each other about what their mama would say. He turned the key and pulled onto the main road, following their directions toward a part of town he'd never had reason to visit, where the houses got smaller, and the paint peeled worse, and women got sick, without anyone asking why. The house sat at the end of a dirt road, like a forgotten afterthought. Paint peeled from its siding in long strips, and the front porch sagged under the weight of too many hard winters. Samuel parked his truck and watched the twins run toward the screen door, their $60 clutched tight in their fists. Mama, we sold patches. We got the medicine money. A woman appeared behind the screen door, thin as a rail, with brown hair pulled back so tight it stretched her face. She opened the door just wide enough to see Samuel sitting in his truck, and fear flashed across her features like lightning. Girls, get inside. Her voice was barely audible. Right now. But, Mama, the man was nice to us. He paid extra for patches. Inside. Now. Samuel climbed out his truck slowly, hands visible. The woman's eyes darted past him toward the main road, like she expected someone else to come driving up that dirt path. Ma'am, I'm Samuel Garrett. Just wanted to make sure your girls got home safe. You need to leave. She stepped back from the door. Please, just go. Your daughter said you're sick. Maybe I can help. No one can help. The words came out strangled. Please, mister, if he sees you here. If who sees me? She glanced at the twins, who stood frozen in the doorway. Girls, go to your room. Close the door. They obeyed without argument. Samuel heard their footsteps on creaky floorboards, a door clicking shut. Who are you afraid of? The woman's hand went to her throat, fingertips touching what looked like old bruises. Sheriff Morrison. He comes by to check on us sometimes. Since my husband left. Says it's his duty to make sure we're not causing trouble. What kind of trouble? Any kind. All kinds. She wrapped her arms around herself. He says single mothers are a burden on decent folks. Says if I can't pay my way, maybe I should find other ways to contribute to the community. Samuel's stomach turned. What does that mean? It means what you think it means. Her voice cracked. And if I don't cooperate, he'll arrest me for something. Anything. Says he'll put my girls in foster care with good Christian families who know how to raise children proper. How long has this been going on? 6 months. Ever since Tom disappeared. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Morrison says Tom probably ran off because I wasn't woman enough to keep him. Says maybe if I learn to be more grateful for what men provide, I might have better luck. Samuel stepped closer to the porch. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Kellerman. Sarah, what Morrison's doing is wrong. It's criminal. You think I don't know that? Her laugh was bitter. You think I haven't tried to get help? You know what Pastor Williams told me when I went in? Said maybe God was testing my faith. Said submitting to authority was a woman's burden to bear. Samuel's hands clenched. Morrison's face flashed in his memory. Standing in the police station 3 years ago, lying through his teeth about the mayor's son who'd killed his daughter. What about other people in town? What about them? They all know. They all look the other way. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. Because Morrison keeps the peace. Keeps the troublemakers in line. And a woman like me? I'm expendable. Samuel drove straight to Brennan's general store, where Carl was stacking canned goods behind the counter. Carl, we need to talk. Carl Brennan looked up from his work, saw something in Samuel's face. What's eating you? Sarah Kellerman, the woman with the twin girls. Carl's expression closed off. What about her? You know what Morrison's been doing to her? I know Morrison keeps this town safe from people who might cause problems. She's not causing problems. She's being victimized. Carl set down his clipboard. Samuel, you lost your daughter. I understand you're hurting. But getting involved in other people's business won't bring Emma back. This isn't about Emma, isn't it? Carl's voice was gentle but firm. Morrison may not be perfect, but he keeps order. Sometimes that means making hard choices about who gets protection and who doesn't. You're saying she deserves what's happening to her? I'm saying some women attract trouble. Always have, Always will. And men like Morrison have to deal with the consequences. Samuel left without another word. He drove to the church, found Pastor Williams in his office. "Pastor, I need to talk about Sarah Kellerman." Williams looked up from his Bible. That poor woman. Such a burden she carries. The burden of being assaulted by our sheriff. The burden of rebellion against God's order. Williams closed his Bible carefully. When women reject their proper place, Samuel, chaos follows. Morrison is trying to restore balance. By raping her? By teaching her the consequences of pride. Williams stood up. "I know you mean well, but this isn't your concern." Samuel felt something cold settle in his chest. The same feeling he'd had when Morrison told him there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute the mayor's son. When the whole town closed ranks to protect one of their own. It wasn't enough evidence, was it? Samuel's voice was quiet. "When Emma died, you all knew exactly who was driving that truck." Williams didn't answer. Samuel drove home as the sun set, his mind churning. He sat in his empty house, staring at Emma's photograph on the mantel. At 9 o'clock, he got back in his truck and drove to Sarah Kellerman's house. Morrison's patrol car was parked in the driveway. Samuel parked behind Morrison's patrol car and walked to the front door. Through the thin walls, he could hear Sarah's voice, pleading and broken. "Please, not tonight. The girls are still awake. Girls need to learn how the world works." Morrison's voice was rough, entitled, "Need to see what happens when women don't show proper respect." Samuel didn't knock. He kicked the door open. Morrison spun around, his shirt half unbuttoned, his badge catching the lamplight. Sarah sat on her couch, dress torn at the shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "Garrett, what the hell are you doing here? Getting between you and her. This is police business. You need to leave." "What police business?" Samuel stepped into the room. Assaulting a woman in her own home? Morrison's hand moved to his gun. "Careful, Sam. You're interfering with an official investigation." "What investigation?" "Investigating reports of drug activity, prostitution, child neglect." Morrison's smile was cold. Amazing what people report when they get concerned about their neighbors. Sarah looked up at Samuel, her eyes wide with terror. He made those reports himself. Called them in from his own office. Smart woman. Morrison's voice was casual, like he was discussing the weather, though not smart enough to keep her mouth shut. Samuel's rage crystallized into something sharp and focused. "Sarah, do you have any evidence? Anything that proves what he's been doing?" "I have photos." Her voice was barely a whisper. "On my phone. And recordings." "Shut up." Morrison drew his gun. "Both of you shut up right now." "You gonna shoot us both?" Samuel didn't move. "How are you gonna explain that?" "Home invasion. You broke in, attacked me. I defended myself and the victim." Morrison's confidence was returning. "Who's gonna question my version?" "Give me your phone, Sarah." She reached for the table beside the couch. Morrison swung his gun toward her. "Don't move." "Let her move." Samuel stepped between them. "You want to shoot someone, shoot me. But you won't. Because you're a coward who only hurts people who can't fight back." Morrison's face flushed red. "You think you know what's best for this town? I know you killed my daughter. Your daughter ran into traffic." "Your daughter?" Samuel's voice was deadly quiet. "The mayor's son was driving drunk. You buried the report. Just like you bury everything else that threatens your little kingdom." Sarah grabbed her phone from the table. Morrison noticed too late. "I have everything." She held the phone up. Pictures of my bruises. Recordings of his threats. Text messages where he admits what he's doing. "No one will believe you." Morrison kept his gun trained on Samuel. Word of a whore against the sheriff. "They'll believe me." Samuel reached for Sarah's phone. "Because I'm going to make them listen." Morrison lunged forward. Samuel caught his wrist, twisted until the gun clattered to the floor. They fought, crashing into furniture, Morrison cursing and swinging wild punches. Samuel was bigger, angrier, and had 3 years of grief fueling his strength. He pinned Morrison to the floor, knee on his chest. "Sarah, call 911. "And tell them what?" He is 911. Samuel looked down at Morrison's face, saw the same smug expression he'd worn 3 years ago when he lied about Emma's accident. The same look he probably wore every time he hurt Sarah. Every time he threatened her daughters. We're going for a walk. Samuel hauled Morrison to his feet. All three of us. Downtown. Like hell. You can walk, or I can drag you. Your choice. They walked down Main Street in the darkness, Samuel gripping Morrison's arm, Sarah clutching her phone like a lifeline. The town square was empty, except for a few teenagers hanging around the old bandstand. Go home, kids. Samuel's voice carried across the square. This isn't for you. But word spread fast in small towns. Lights came on in houses. People stepped onto porches, drawn by the strange sight of their sheriff being marched through downtown by Samuel Garrett and Sarah Kellerman. Samuel guided them to the bandstand, pulled Morrison up the steps. Sarah hesitated. Come on. Samuel held out his hand. Time for everyone to hear your story. They won't listen. They will tonight. Sarah climbed the steps. More people gathered in the square. Carl Brennan, Pastor Williams, the mayor, half the town council, all the people who'd looked the other way for 6 months, while Morrison terrorized a woman and her children. Folks. Samuel's voice boomed across the square. Some of you know me. Some of you remember my daughter Emma. All of you know Sheriff Morrison here. Morrison struggled against Samuel's grip. Let me go, you son of a bitch. Sarah Kellerman has something to tell you, and you're all going to listen. Sarah's hands shook as she held up her phone. For 6 months, Sheriff Morrison has been coming to my house, forcing himself on me, threatening to take my children if I didn't submit to him. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Morrison shouted over them. She's lying. She's a drug addict, a prostitute. Show them the photos, Sarah. She held up her phone, swiped through images, bruises on her throat, a split lip, finger marks on her arms. He did this. All of it. And he said if I told anyone, he'd arrest me on fake charges and put my girls in foster care. The crowd grew larger. Windows opened. Car doors slammed as more people arrived. Play the recording, Samuel said. Morrison's own voice filled the square, caught on Sarah's phone. You keep your mouth shut, or those pretty little girls of yours might have an accident. Kids go missing all the time in small towns. The silence that followed was absolute. Samuel looked out at the faces in the crowd. People he'd known his whole life. People who'd stayed quiet while a predator wore a badge and terrorized the vulnerable. You all knew. His voice carried to every corner of the square. Every damn one of you knew what he was doing. And you said nothing. Pastor Williams stepped forward. Samuel, this isn't the way to handle this. What way is? The way you handled it when Sarah came to you for help? When you told her to submit to authority? The pastor's face went white. Conversations erupted throughout the crowd as people began calling the state police, the county sheriff, anyone with authority that wasn't Morrison. Samuel looked down at the badge on Morrison's chest, then ripped it off and threw it into the dirt. 2 weeks later, Samuel knocked on Sarah's door. This time she opened it without fear. Behind her, the twins played on clean carpet in a house that finally felt like home. I brought you something. Samuel held up a small orange kitten. Patches had babies. Thought your girls might like to meet their kitten's daughter. Sarah smiled for the first time since he'd known her. They're going to love her. The twins ran to the door, faces lighting up when they saw the kitten. As they argued gently over what to name her, Samuel felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Peace. Not the kind that came from forgetting, but the kind that came from making sure the silence could never hurt anyone again